So this is a root ball from a camellia plant. My son called me up a couple years ago and he said, hey, I'm pulling that root ball up out of the ground if you want it. So we went up there, he got it out. We trimmed some pieces out here that were just kind of hanging out and cut it right there. And that portion of it below there, I've done a couple turnings on it already. But I've been waiting to trim some of this out of the way because it's got a lot of dirt in there that I couldn't power wash out. I tried like 2 times. Been waiting for my chainsaw to get dull enough that I'm willing to start cutting on that. And that's where it's at right now. I either need to put a new chain on it or I need to go ahead and dull it some more by cutting this. I'm certainly not going to use a brand new chain on this. I'm not going to make you watch me trim this up with a dull chainsaw, but that's where I'm headed right now. I'm going to take this out and do some trimming on it and make sure that I can turn this section in one piece because I see crevices in there and I want to make sure it's going to stay together. So let me go do that and we'll get back and we'll look at this again. Okay, I'm back and I'd like to say that I just trimmed this, but actually that footage I just showed you was almost a year ago, but here it is. I trimmed it, I looked at it, I wasn't sure yet if I wanted to trim more off or not, but I'm going to go ahead and get it mounted up. There's a hole right there for a worm screw. I'll get it mounted on there and we will see if we can make something out of this. I've got it mounted up and it's doing about 450 RPM, and I pretty much have to try a 5/8 bowl gouge, but not so sure that's going to work. This grain goes every which way and it is very hard. Plus I'll be having a lot of air to turn, but I've got to try this. If it doesn't work, I've got 2 others lined up, so let's see what happens. Alright, so this is obviously giving me a little bit of trouble. I'm going to go ahead and use this tool that I've had for a long time. I used it at work to turn big patterns. It's just a diamond point scraper basically, but it's pretty heavy duty. I have found that it works pretty good for these places like this where you have a lot of air. It's not going to make a real clean cut, but it'll help me get rid of some of that material so I can get a clean cut. Let's give it a try. Gotta find a glove. This gets rid of the material, but boy, it throws out some sharp little pieces doing it. Okay, I found one of my old bike riding gloves, so see if that works, because it's really just hitting me right here. Go back to the gouge, see how that works. I just want to get rid of this area here that hasn't been turned. I'm starting to like what I have down here. I think we can work with that. And a 5/8 bowl gouge is cutting pretty decently in this area. So we'll just finish it off with that and have a look at what we can do down here. Okay, I just resharpened my 5/8 bowl gouge. I'm almost through up here, so that's close enough now. I'm going to do a little reshaping up through here, and I don't know what I'm looking for, but maybe I'll see it after I cut a little bit more off. I don't think that's ever going to go away unless I cut it away. Got the same thing with this one. I can almost hear people telling me to fill it with epoxy, and that probably would be great for some people, but I'm going to stick with the wood and see what we can get out of this. So let's make a few more cuts and see what it looks like after that. I think it's an okay shape. It's got some really nice grain in it. It certainly has a lot of natural features. But I need to work on this bottom and come up with a tenon. This is quite large here. I probably want to cut some of that down. Alright, I think that's not bad. I've got to cut a tenon on here. I'll use these here so I can get a nice grip, and those are dovetails. A couple of reasons I'm using these jaws. They're set up to do a 3-inch tenon. It's a dovetail. It's a 1/2 inch deep. And I have another set that's the size bigger than this, but I keep these on this chuck. I could change them, but I think this is plenty good. I have a line right there. That's about a 1/2 inch. And this wood is really hard. For this, I'll use this square carbide cutter, just so I can cut that a little bit easier. Okay, I stopped a little shy of that because I need to cut a dovetail on it, and I want to make sure that that fits good. I've got a really nice fitting tenon. I'm happy with that. I like the shape. I like all these natural features we've got left. I'm about ready to flip it around, but I want to go over it first with the negative rake scraper, and I might have to do it when it's flipped around as well, because this grain is kind of coming from all directions, being a root system. About 700 RPM. That cuts really nice. Really nice. I have it flipped around. I put a line right here. This is, I want to leave at least this much, just because of the features on the outside. I don't want to cut those away. I'll go ahead and try my 5/8 bowl gouge, but I'm kind of thinking I'll probably end up maybe drilling this out, and I might have to use carbides to finish hollowing it. But we'll go ahead and find out. Doing about 720 RPM. Alright, so this is actually cutting pretty decently, and I immediately have the tailstock in the way, so I think I'm going to pull it back. I'll go ahead and drill this, and then we'll try to cut it all with the gouge. So I'll be right back. I just drilled it out with a 2 1/8 inch Forstner bit about halfway down. I no longer have tailstock support. I'm going to test this and see how it feels while I cut it. 700 RPM, 5/8 bowl gouge. So this piece here was just dangling off of a little bit of wood, and I don't think it looks any worse with it gone than with it on there, and maybe it looks better. That's my story anyways, and I'll stick with it. Go ahead and cut some more on here, and just a little bit more. I want to go ahead and get that mark off there that I put on it. I just sharpened my 5/8 bowl gouge, but then I decided I'll try this 1/2 inch with a 40/40 grind on it, because the 40/40 grind is pretty good for going across end grain. Well, this is just a combination of everything, so let's see how this works. So I just went ahead and drilled to what I think is my final depth. I'm probably 1 inch from the bottom, and I'm okay with that because look how thick these are. Gonna see if I can clean up the side walls with all of these openings, and then we will finish cutting the rest of it out. I just resharpened the 5/8 bowl gouge. 725 RPM. I just stopped and I found a big old dirt clod right here, and actually there's still some right there. Wow, you can't tell it. It looks like the bark on those roots, but it's dirt. So I think I got most of it out of the way now. I'll go ahead and cut the rest of this out because I'm actually pretty happy with what this looks like on the inside compared to the outside. So let's see what we can do with the 5/8 gouge, and probably have to stop and sharpen it again. Oh boy, we're almost there. I think I've cut everything I want to do now, just for the fact that I don't want to get it thin in some of these areas, and it's hard to cut. I got some big cracks down here. I don't want to take any more off of them. I think what I'll do is try to clean it up with my freshly sharpened negative rake scraper. We'll get the walls and we'll get down here and try to get the bottom of it. Okay, I'm going to spend quite a bit of time going over this, and when I come back we'll go ahead and get it sanded up. Well, it is time to sand this, and it's going to be a slow process because I don't plan on spinning the work while I sand. With all of these voids here, I could probably do some of it, but I don't want it to reach down here and sand any of this area. I want it to stay just like it is. And this area here is liable to grab the paper and rip it, so the best thing to do is just to hold it and sand like that. The area that's not turned, I'll use the Sandiflex on. And we'll go over it like that. Inside, I'm going to sand it like this as well. I'll go ahead and turn my dust collector on so you can see some of that. I stopped sanding at 240. I'll put a coat of Zinsser seal coat on it, which is shellac based, and we'll have a look at it. But that might be all I sand to is 240, because as you see, this is a very rugged looking turning with lots of little nature areas, and I especially like this. So let's put this seal coat on, see what it looks like. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. You can see how much it changes when you get the first coat of whatever you put on there, whether it be shellac or wipe-on poly. It really will change the look. And so does the shellac. So that looks interesting. I think I can just wipe it on here. Oh, that's really cool here, huh? That is extra cool. I'll use a little brush to make sure I don't have it too thick in areas. I've got 2 coats of the sanding sealer on here, and I usually go over it in between each coat with Scotch-Brite. I also have this round ball that this material is like Scotch-Brite. I believe it's green, and that should be 600 grit. It really works good for this type of work. And the inside's especially good. Anyways, if you've never seen one of these, I believe I got this at Harbor Freight, and it actually does a good job as far as preparing a finish for the next coat. So I'll go ahead and get 2 coats of shellac on here, then I will be back. So I'm not going to make you watch removing this tenon in normal speed because it took a long time, and there was a big crack I was worried about. I think that's close enough. I'm going to get this off, chisel that little nub off, sand it up, and sign it, and I'll be back and show you what we have. Well, here it is, and it is very, very heavy. It's 8 inches in diameter, and it stands 5 1/4 inches tall. The reason it's so heavy, it's got 1-inch walls on there, and I left them that way because, well, there's a root right here, and if I cut much more off on the inside, I was afraid that would fall off. And there's this area here, which I think is great. I didn't want that to get separated, and it was getting close. And then I would have ended up with 2 windows here, and I didn't want 2 windows there. I also left all the chainsaw marks on here, and that's my handiwork from trying to trim all the roots away that was sticking up. And I just left that. I smoothed it up, and I think it looks pretty nice. I used 2 coats of Zinsser Seal Coat, 2 coats of Zinsser Shellac, and then I used the white Scotch-Brite on my power drill and buffed it out. I think it's a really nice finish for a gnarly old root ball. And there's the bottom. That big old crack in there that had me worried taking the tenon off. So thanks to Jason for digging this up and saving it for me. And also a special thanks to Caleb and Levi for going on a camping trip with Papa and Grandma last week to Silver Falls State Park. We had a great time. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did like the video, do me a favor and click that like button. And while you're there, it would be great if you could share the video around. Those 2 things will really help my channel grow. Leave a comment. I read them all and I do my best to answer them all. Thanks to all my subscribers. And if you're not, please consider doing so. I do a mix of all types of turnings. Some are simple and some are complex. So let me know your favorite. Thanks again, and until the next time, see you later.